marshals took Johnson into custody, they discovered Shondell Barnett with him.
Memphis rapper Young Dolph.
This afternoon, U.S. Marshals released the
Fuzzy hair. Fuzzy. Why is it fuzzy like that? Fuzzy, man. Camera is fuzzy. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Looks a little better. There you go.
name of a third person involved, Shondell Barnett.
Now faces charges in the murder of the rapper Young Dolph.
This afternoon, U.S. Marshals released the name of a third person involved, Shondell Barnett. Investigators say he was in the car with Justin Johnson when it was stopped in Indiana. Cornelius Smith was already being held on other charges in Shelby County. This afternoon, law enforcement held a news conference providing more insight into their investigation. Thank you for joining us. I'm April Thompson.
I'm Alex Coleman. WREG Shay Arthur was there and is live now with what she's learned. Shay.
Hey, Alex, April. Yeah, we did get some insight, but tonight there is still many questions in this case. One of those questions is, what is the motive? But one thing was very clear. The public's help was essential. It was crucial in this case. Since a reward was offered, law enforcement received, get this, more than 500 tips, which ultimately led to those arrests.
Memphis Police Chief C.J. Davis says her office has enough information to make sure the men her team believes killed young Dolph will see their day in court, but says she can't provide specifics pending indictments. When asked about a theory on a motive,
not just yet. There has been just a wealth of tips and information and leads and putting this case together. Lots of rumors and innuendo, but we're really trying to sift through to the truth and what the real motives are. We're just not ready to put that out there right now.
Even before the reward announcement, marshals logged hundreds of hours. U.S. Marshal Tyrese Miller says they received more than 500 tips, and those tips took them all over as they searched for 23-year-old Justin Johnson.
We went to Indianapolis, Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, and Hampton, Virginia, checking different addresses and following up on tips.
His team got a tip yesterday Johnson was on a highway in Indiana. The marshal's office there picked him up. They were able to stop his vehicle as it pulled into a truck stop in Brazil, Indiana, nearly 6 hours from Memphis. It's unclear if Johnson had a specific reason for escaping to Indiana.
He never really stayed in one place very long.
Once marshals took Johnson into custody, they discovered Shondell Barnett with him. He's originally from Memphis, but lives in Dallas.
Shondell Barnett is a person who we believe was providing assistance to Justin since we've been looking for him. He now faces charges of extensive after-the-fact first-degree murder.
The two men now need to be extradited back to Memphis. As for more possible arrests in the case,
it is very possible. It is very possible. Once we, continue to conduct this investigation, there's no telling where it could potentially
Okay.
lead.
All right. We've been, dang, I can't even talk. Stuttering. Welcome to the Lawyer Henderson podcast show. Thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. Hit the cash app if you like our commentary. So there you go. You heard about 3 men that were involved in young Dolph murder. And one of the things that the newscaster was pointing out is, is a motive. Remember, I did after these guys shot and killed young Dolph, I did the commentary in which, like I said, YouTube cut the sound off on my phone. A lot of this here is that we talked there again about these labels. We talked so much about these labels, about jealousy and envy, about how people want to start getting, just because you're not put on or nobody puts you on, you start getting upset, you start getting mad, you start getting jealous. And the white supremacists know about this. They know that you'll get jealous and envious of your brother, your sister, that has these, that once, you make it as far as in the music or the industry or the movie industry or music industry, that comes along with a lot of jealousy, a lot of envy. But these three men were captured by the U.S. Marshals and the police. And it's just like mind-boggling that they were basically they had their whole lives ahead of them. They would waste their lives killing another black man just because he's already made it, just because he's basically made millions of dollars or whatever. And we see this in our culture because we see that the gang violence that goes into the so-called hip-hop culture is very sporadic. And that's something that black men have to deal with, okay, because of this label disputes and, having, not wanting to fight, like we used to do back in the days. We used to do this, we used to fight. You know what I mean? We didn't need guns back in the days. And then in the 70s, 80s, we did breakdancing if we was upset with each other. But evil as money is, I'm not going to say you don't need it, but what I will say is that this gang culture that these labels be promoting, and just don't get me wrong, it basically is bigger, it's deeper than that. It's real deeper than that, and I went through a lot of that in my commentary when I talked about young Dolph's case, where I said that a lot of your Democrat-run cities is basically, like this crime. They like the criminality. They like black people shooting and killing each other. They like this. And we basically fall into those traps, okay? We fall into those traps because of a stupidity. And a lot of these guys that they are basically, that is doing this, they got these single mom, these hood rats who's having these kids out of wedlock, no daddy in the home. A lot of that energy comes from that single mothering head home because there's no father there. There's no man in the house, and these guys end up basically with that energy that they can't basically just say, hey, let me just go out there and do something for myself. Let me go out there and make something happen instead of just going out and pick up a gun and shooting somebody else. Let me go out there and see where I can get on my hustle and grind, you see. And that's what was going on here. And what was going on here. I think one of the things we have to understand is that we should have learned about this a long time ago, that the Democrats and white people in general, of course, they're not going to give us our reparations. Of course, they basically make sure that the black community, specifically black men, don't get money. As Dr. Umar Johnson points out, it is the white man's fault because he caused destruction in the black community. And it's since then. But I think as black people and black men specifically, we should be basically very smart to understand what not to pick up a gun and take somebody's life over this. So let's go ahead and read this so we can continue our discussion here on young Dolph murder. The three guys, one of them is saying is an accessory. U.S. Marshals, Memphis Police, and Shelby County's district attorney provided new details Wednesday on the suspect charged in the murder of Memphis rapper Young Dolph. Justin Johnson, 23, also known as Straight Drop, was captured Tuesday afternoon in Indiana. Another man, Cornelius Smith, 32, was already in custody in Mississippi, but was indicted in Shelby County on several charges in cases including first-degree murder. Okay. Another man identified as Shondell Barnett, who was originally from Dallas, faces charges of accessory after the fact for the role in helping Johnson. Officials said Barnett was a passenger in a vehicle driven with Johnson when he was captured. He has also been held in Clay County, Indiana jail and will be extradited back to Memphis. According to the U.S. Marshals Service, Barnett also faces charges of criminal attempt to commit first-degree murder and theft of property from $10,000 to about $60,000. Justin Johnson, Cornelius Smith, Shondell Barnett. U.S. Marshal Tyrese Miller said that they received more than 500 tips after the announcement of a warrant for information on Johnson. We went to Indiana, Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, Hampton, Virginia, checking different addresses, following up on tips, Miller said. Law enforcement officers were contacted and they pulled over Johnson at a truck stop in Brazil, Indiana, and took him into custody, the Marshal Service said. Johnson had been on the run for some time, and the U.S. Marshal Miller said he did not stay in one place alone. It is unclear if he had a specific reason for being in Indiana. Memphis Police Chief C.J. Davis said that the investigation is ongoing, and it's possible that there would be more suspects. She said police do not have a theory on the motive for shooting at the time. Now, let me stop right there, because I don't like when the police claim they don't have a motive here. Jealousy is the motive, but more than that, it's this, like I said, this label of rap, supposed to be beef, that crap, like I said, it's dying out. Okay. It's so much played, overplayed, that these black men were really willing to risk their whole lives to engage in this beef. You see, that's why they always say that the good men, they always finish last. You know why? Because we're not caught up into that foolishness. We're not caught up into that ignorant and that stuff that these hood rats want us to be caught up into. And so that's why they always say, excuse me, that good men finish last, right? Because we're not caught up into this foolishness. It goes on to say, the article goes on to say, young Dolph, 36, whose real name was Dolph Thornton Jr., was a Memphis rapper who was shot and killed at a shooting at a cookie shop on Airway Boulevard on November 17th. Police revealed Johnson as a suspect last week. Smith was identified Tuesday, following his indictment by a grand jury on charges of first-degree murder, attempted murder, theft, and other charges. You see, a lot of them raised by hood rats. Dusty Negroes raised by hood rats. These fools who didn't have nothing going on in high school, who didn't have nothing going on in their neighborhood, so they seen somebody else progressing, and they decide, oh, we're going to, we're going to take your life because you're making more money than me. You see, this is how the dusty Negroes do things. Goes on to say in July of 2015, at the age of 17, Johnson was charged with aggravated rape and aggravated robbery. District Attorney Amy Weirich said. In 2017, after his release, he was arrested and sentenced for a shooting at a bowling alley, but was freed 9 months later after he requested release. In May of 2021, following another arrest, he was released from Federal Bureau of Prison, Weirich said. Smith had an early charge for aggravated robbery, she said. Memphis Police Chief C.J. Davis said it is possible that more arrests would be made in relation to the late rap star's death. It is very important. It's very possible once we continue to conduct the investigation. There's no telling where it could potentially lead, she said. There could be other individuals who are implemented in the particular homicide. Okay. Now, this is what I'm saying. This energy. So we didn't have this type of energy, man. You know, back in the days, like I said, we used these right here. We used our fists. You know, you won some, you lost some, yes, but we didn't have to pick up guns and stuff like these young folks are doing now. Labels are also, they got the responsibility too. They got a responsibility to not getting people caught up into this foolishness, this ignorant stuff. And like I said, good men always finish last because we're not caught up into this dumb bull crap. Okay. And so this energy that these people, that they want to go out and shoot and kill, it's coming from that energy where these guys is just, like I said, raised by these hood rats. No male supervision, no male influence in their lives, no man there to teach them anything. You see? And this is what ends up happening. This type of stuff end up being what we've always known, that if you don't have a father figure inside the household, this type of stuff will happen. It's very vital for the father to be in the house because of these situations. Because that father will say, no, put that gun down, you go out there and you fight that man heads up. You see. You don't need guns and knives and all that stuff. You see. But anyway, I digress on that. And I had to really quick talk about the Democrats. About the Democrats. I want to talk about an article that was published in The Hill. Now, The Hill, we thought that The Hill was going to, I guess, be an overall. I thought that The Hill would be a newspaper that didn't try to act like it was the Washington Post or the New York Times. But The Hill, did a story, and that Biden finds uneven footing with black voters. Oh my God, my ears is basically just bothering me right now. All right, so let's go ahead and attack what The Hill says. The newspaper says that President Biden finds himself on an uneven footing with key constituency that delivered him the White House, black voters, 1 year into his presidency. Black leaders and pollsters say that Biden had delivered on some key promises for the black community, but says that the enthusiasm has dampened due to a lack of action on some legislative priorities, including police reform and voting rights in the 50-50 Senate. Okay, let me stop you right there. First of all, Biden has not delivered on shit for the black community. Let's be very clear. Okay. And this woman who did this, her name was Morgan Chaflet. Okay. Let's be very clear. Biden has not done a damn thing for the black community. Nothing. It goes on to say that the Reverend Al Sharpton, who had urged Biden to get more aggressive on voting rights, said that the current situation could foretell a turnaround issue for Democrats and the 2022 midterms if they can't convince black voters that they are trying to deliver on such promises. Okay. And we see this all the time with white people and their little politics and their games. We see this all the time with them. Every other groups of people, you get things swiftly. You get things, just like that. Get black people. Well, see, we're stalling, and we can't get enough votes, and the Republicans. No. These people lie so much. They have a Democrat president, Democrat Senate, Democratic House of Representatives. These folks play the same game. They've been playing this game ever since slavery. And black people, we got to, stop letting people like Al Sharpton and all these other folks speak for us. No, the fact of the matter is that nobody is worrying about no goddamn voting rights. We want reparations back on the table. Okay? We're not talking about no other foolish bull crap or what Joe Biden is talking about voting rights. Every 4 years, they come up with the same lies, same excuses. It goes on to say here that Al Sharpton said that part of what motivated black voters. Oh, man, this is great. Let me start over. It goes on to say that part of what motivated black voters last year was, one, we wanted to get rid of Donald Trump, and two, we wanted to get voting rights and George Floyd Act, Sharpton said in an interview. The lack of progress on both bills, he said, has dampened some enthusiasm. Should there be a Biden versus Trump rematch in 2024, it is likely Democrats could see a higher turnout among black voters to their favor. Let me stop you right there. The same old fraud game that they played in 2020. We're still trying to look for the numbers and the people who was rallying Joe Biden in 2020. Because most black people stayed home. I know I did. Okay. And this lie that the white media keep on out there saying that we basically were supporting the Democrats, well, we'll let them have that. Okay. But even in sense then of them basically doing everything for everybody else besides black folks shows you their utter disrespect for us. It goes on to say, though, that despite Biden's approval rating declining among the board, declining across the board, including among African Americans, most black voters still back the president more than they do Trump. This is bullshit. This is bull crap. This is the reason why you don't take anything from the white media. Okay? You don't take nothing from the white media. A lot of black people have basically showed their contempt for Biden. They knew that Biden was not going to do anything. This is the reason why you have to watch newspapers like these folks from The Hill. I thought The Hill was going to be a different type of newspaper than the New York Times or the Washington Post. Let me be the first to say, we're not rocking with the Democrats on this. The Democrats owe us reparations. The Democrats lied. They manipulated themselves in thinking that they didn't have to do anything for black folks. And you don't need Al Sharpton and Jesse or any of all these other folks out there talking about that we still support them when they have basically showed nothing but an ill contempt for us since they've been in office. It goes on to say here that despite Biden's approval rating declining across the board, including among African Americans, most black voters still back the president more than they do Trump. Yeah, right. In general, black voters, like all voters, are discouraged at where we're at, and are discouraged that and discouraged that more is not getting done, says Selena Lake, a Democratic pollster who polled for Biden's 2020 campaign. It's more discouragement with the Democratic Party than Joe Biden. Okay. See, Joe Biden, let me tell you something about Joe Biden. We know that Joe Biden is a racist. And to have him to be president, a lot of us are showing this ill contempt for him. He's been doing everything for everybody else, other groups. He's been showing his ass. No one is pulling for this man. This man has a lower approval rating than what they're saying on the white media. Let me just say that for the record. Goes on to say that the Democrats and black leaders say that there is plenty for African American voters to be happy about. No, the hell they're not. They point to Biden's diverse cabinet and traditional nominees, translation jobs, his coronavirus response efforts to address health disparities, and provisions and the infrastructure law to expand broadband and get rid of the leak pipes. Nobody in the black community is concerned about this bullshit. You see how white people, they always wanting to, let's sit down and say and tell you what the president is doing. See, with black people, it's always symbolic stuff. It's always, healthcare and all that. No, we're asking specifically what is this dude doing for us? So far, he ain't done a damn thing. There was some of us in the black community, we were warning that Biden is no different than Donald Trump. We were warning that. Goes on to say, though, that but other elements of Biden's legislative agenda are stalled. Bipartisan discussions around police reform legislation collapsed in September, months after the House passed the legislation named after George Floyd, a bill that he still has not passed yet. They still have not passed yet. The discussion fell despite widespread demonstration against racial injustice and police brutality across the nation following Floyd's death. Numerous attempts by Democrats to pass election reform bills have been blocked by Republicans in the Senate, where 60 votes are needed to advance more legislation. No, that's not true. No. The only thing that the Republicans can do right now is do a filibuster. That's it. And the legislation still pass most of the time. See, this is what we're talking about. The Democrats' con game continues. Goes on to say that Biden's sweeping social and climate policy bill, which advocates says that it contains numerous provisions that would aid minority communities and also stall in Congress. Mondale Robertson, founder of the Black Male Voter Project, said that the Democrats are in danger of losing votes from Black Americans who are issued voters but not necessarily party loyalists. Robinson said that block of voters were responsible for the 2020 victories in Georgia and elsewhere. One of these voters could stay home in midterms. Oh, yes, we're going to stay home in the midterm election because the Democrats have shown their ill attempt for Black people. They continue to do so. And we think every time that they do nothing, we continue to get shocked. We know that the Democrats is not going to do a damn thing, but we keep on going out voting like they basically are going to do something. Look like and this is crazy, but it's what Black people do here. It goes on to say that the Democratic Party has a serious problem on their hands because everything they told these voters was possible got put on the back burner as soon as they got into office, Robertson said. Sharpton said Biden and the Democrats must better communicate to the Black voters that they are working to advance priorities. Okay. Let me see. Hello. You see. Now, Sharpton goes on to say that they want to move on voting rights by the time that they get to Martin Luther King Day. But they're not going to push on anything because every time that you mentioned black folks, you know, you always got to talk about voting. You got to talk about other types of stuff. This is not what we're, you know, focusing on anyway. You know what I'm saying? Most black people are not focusing on voting rights and stuff like that, but this is what their narrative is, you know. And this is why this Hill magazine, I'm very upset about it. I thought it was going to be something different, but it's continuing to do the same thing that these other white news outlets do, and that is to try to put somebody else's agenda up on us. And we're not talking about none of this foolishness that they're talking about in the white media. It goes on to say, when I lost my last, you know, let me see the paragraph I lost. Okay, here it goes. It says, Sharpton said that Biden and the Democrats must better communicate to the black voters that they are working to advance priorities like voting rights, even if those efforts ultimately fail. They got to convince them that, one, that they made every effort to deliver, Sharpton said, and two, they need to be on the ground relating and meeting with people, validators that they must trust, not just party officials, end quote. Now, Democrats said that they are leaning on the progress that Biden has made ahead of the 2022 midterms. That include, for instance, highlighted the Justice Department prohibiting of chokeholds, efforts to improve maternal health and combat housing discrimination, and a new $8.7 billion lending program for minority-owned small businesses. The White House recently distributed a lengthy fact sheet highlighting several executive and legislative action the government has taken to advance racial equity. Yeah, you see, same old con game that they always play with black folks. We're just not falling for it. We're just not falling for it. They just, you know what I'm saying? It's they basically showing their ill attempt for us. We're just not falling for it. They got Michelle Obama. She out there talking about, oh, you should vote. You know, she's out there cheerleading, talking about we should vote in the upcoming primary elections, and so that the Democrats can keep the seats. They got her talking about out there cheerleading, and folks, we're just not going for it. We're just not going for the okie doke. We're just not. The Democrats have shown that they have an ill attempt for black people. They have shown their utmost disrespect to us. They're not even hiding it at this point. They're doing exactly what the Republicans have been doing, and they're just basically just bringing it into your face here. Which lead me to our today's topic. Speaking of Michelle Obama and the celebration of going out there claiming that we should go and vote like our lives depended on it, and cheerleading for the Democrats who ain't done a damn thing for black folks. And even when her husband was in office, he didn't do any damn thing for black folks. For the 8 years that Obama been in office, we lost black wealth. Okay, we lost wealth in the community. So, you know, under Obama, and now Biden is making sure that it continues. And that what leads me to what we have today, the discussion of symbolic, trying to give us symbolic gestures. That's what white people is about. It all goes back, like I said, to that after the Civil War, or after we left slavery or what have you, where George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, all these former slave owners, they believe that the black man should not have anything, that the white man should have control of the black man. They still believe that. And one of the ways that they do this is constantly and consistently making sure that we don't get no tangibles, that we don't get no reparation, that we don't close the wealth gap. This is one of their ways of doing things. Let's give these other groups money. Let's give illegal immigrants who's broken federal law, let's give them $465,000. Let's give money to the LGBT community. This is why we cannot rock with the Democrats no more. The black people, we need our own political party. But People.com came out, speaking of Michelle Obama, she was one of them who was celebrating that Maya Angelou is becoming one of the first black women on the U.S. quarter. She was a phenomenal woman who, comfort in her own skin, made so many of us feel seen in ours, Michelle Obama said of the late poet. Michelle Obama celebrated Maya Angelou after the late poet became the first black woman to appear on the U.S. quarter. The former First Lady 57 posted a tribute to the Pulitzer Prize. Polarizer Prize winner on Instagram Wednesday, referencing Angelou's iconic collection of poems, Phenomenal Woman, published in 1995. What a fitting tribute to have Dr. Maya Angelou become the first black woman on the U.S. quarter. She was a phenomenal woman who comfort in her own skin makes so many of us feel seen in ours. Obama captioned a photo of herself with Angelou's face on a screen in the background. I remember the first time I read Phenomenal Woman and how struck I was by affirming power of her words. She celebrated a black woman's beauty like no one had ever dared to before, she continued. In a singular poem, she spoke to our essence and grace us with an anthem for all women, one of the uncovered our hope, our pain, our ambition, our fear, Obama added, concluding she knew us in a way that no one else did, and she deserved the incredible honor, she goes on to say. The coin honoring Angelou were into circulation on Monday and passed tribute to the 1970 autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing. While the new quarter still featured George Washington on the head side, the civil rights activist appeared on the tail side in the position that evokes the autobiography's title. Angelou, who died at the age of 86 in 2014, is one of the 20 trailblazing women being honored by the U.S. Mint with a new series of quarters as part of the American Women Quarter program the United States Mint shared on its site. Okay, so now this is what I'm talking about. Hey, black women, we're not going to give you no tangibles, but hey, look, we're going to give you something. We're going to put your face on the quarter. You see, symbolic gestures. Like I told you, this is what white people think of us. They think that, oh, we're going to give you just symbolic gestures, no tangibles, no resources for black people at all, for black women or black men. We're just going to keep on giving y'all Negroes symbolic gestures. That's all we're going to do. Why people who comes from other countries who are not even citizens, oh, well, we're going to give them $465,000 of your taxpayers' money, violating federal law. You see, this is what they're about. And we told you that this is what they're about. And that's the reason why you don't sit down and have a conversation with white people about racism, because they're the one who calls your racism against you. They're not talking about putting money into your hands. There's no discussion to be talked about. These folks align. They, like I said, the Democrats are in office. They can Joe Biden right now can do a study on reparations. He's choosing not to because that's their contempt that they have for Black people, and Black people is still being surprised when nothing gets done. And they come out and they use Nappy Tappy Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, the NAACP, and all these other folks to speak for us, like with the voting rights. You think the majority of Black people are concerned about voting rights? Hell no. The majority of us are not concerned about voting rights. It's a rigged system anyway. Who's talking about like we're just sitting in the damn hood talking about, shoot, I wish I can vote tomorrow. You know, this is the kind of crazy stuff that they put on us, thinking that we basically is rocking with their lies and their manipulation. The white media continues the same game that they've always played. We're not listening to them. They know it. But yet they have to spew their lies and their manipulation to the society, out to society. No one is really talking about excuse me. Nobody's out there in the hood talking about voting rights. Nobody is out there in the Black community. We're not talking about the next midterm elections. We're not talking and worried about no climate changes. We're not talking about that. And then the Hill has the nerve to say, oh, well, Biden has done something for Black folks. He ain't done a damn thing for us. Let's be very clear about that. Nothing. Thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. This man has not done nothing for us. That talk about climate change, all that stuff, that has nothing to do with Black people. And the white media knows it. That's the reason why they are basically, because their newspaper, nobody basically listening to them. Their newspapers, they got to get people. When you go on their website, remember, they want you to subscribe to their newspaper. And before you can read an article, they're wanting you to put your email address so they can inundate you with all of this nonsense that they spew out. And people say, well, I'd rather just go to another site. This is how bad it has gotten for the white media. No one listening to them. Why? Because the Democrats are not doing nothing, and they're all ignoring Black folks. So why pay attention to somebody who is basically not doing nothing for you? The white media has basically showed the contempt for Black folks. Okay? So that's the reason. CNN, ABC, CBS, all of the white media, the propaganda. This doing things for other groups and people who just came over to the country yesterday. These clowns, no one is paying attention to them. No one is listening to Joe Biden. Joe Biden has an ill contempt for Black folks. He is the worst president that this country has ever elected. Everybody is petitioning, wanting him gone. Every time he shows up, they got to basically beg people to come and listen to him speak. Like every time he holds rally, no one hardly shows up. As this man is nobody, it's only a few wealthy people who basically say, all right, we're just going to put him in there. And the rest of the country don't even agree with him being there. But just because you got a few people like Bill Gates and other rich people who saying, well, we can push this virus and all that crap, we can push it more on you. You know, if we put the Democrats in office, none of it's only working for a few people. Nobody cares about what they're talking about, because they're not talking about what we are basically wanting. The white media has basically drowned itself with lying to people. And then they talk about, hey, if excuse me, They talk about donate to you, donate to their newspaper. Why would you donate to their newspaper and they're not talking about nothing? Makes sense to us, right? Okay, makes sense. Okay, if you're not talking about a damn thing, why subscribe to your newspaper? Why go online to your website and subscribe to it? Your newspaper is full of lies, like The Hill. The Hill, I'm upset with The Hill with this particular article right here, because we've been telling the white media for a very long time that the NAACP and Al Sharpton and all these folks, we don't listen to them. We've been telling them that we don't care about what those civil rights leaders are talking about. We're not listening to them, okay? And so the white media and Jim Crow Joe Biden, they think these Negroes got some type of a relationship with us. But they cannot come among black folks, the real black folks. We chase them out of the damn town. Just like in Ferguson. Remember when Jesse got there? They want Jesse the hell out of there. So why do the white media keep on thinking that these folks are talking and speaking for us? We don't even know why that they continue to think that. It's just really an amazing situation how they think that we basically are listening to these folks. We're not. Nappy Tappy Sharpton, he can go and defend Biden all he wants. But we're not talking about no voting rights. Okay, in the black community, we're talking about creating our own businesses. We're talking about fighting for our reparations. We're talking about getting our tangibles that this government owes us for 465 years of enslavement and Jim Crow and all the other things that they promised our ancestors. And the fact is that Biden passed a $4.6 billion